Welcome back to Doc Shows You How. Today we're building landspeeder from 2 tic-tac boxes. I did want to say thanks to everybody. I recently got just over 300 subscribers. If you haven't already, please do that. We're going to go ahead and get to the table and get this build started.
Alright, so tic-tac land speeders. I did just a little bit of research and was able to do the calculations, and the size, tip to tip, of a land speeder reduced down to the scale of Star Wars Legion is right close to 3 inches. These are just shy of 3 inches, so I'm pretty pleased with that. As far as with your Legion character in there, we've got, what's that? Yeah, it's Rebel Rex. It's a good bit of cover. Doesn't really give you anything as far as the abilities of a speeder in Star Wars with guns and people and stuff, but we'll address that in another video. So this is pretty easy to build. I've been developing this method, this recipe and tutorial for a little while here. So we're going to go ahead and clear away the finished ones and kind of pulling out some of the stuff to work with. Alright, so tic-tac containers. You will need two. One is going to be the main body, and the other one is going to be what we use to cut to get the windshield and this spoiler shape here. So you'll need two of those. If you're not trying to put it as a playable vehicle, I use a poker chip. Inexpensive. I picked up a pack at the thrift store here, a couple bucks, and I'll never run out. But it's a nice size. It sits nicely under the overall footprint, pretty nicely there. So those are kind of the main pieces you'll need for the build. Next thing you will definitely need is a bit of foam core. This is going to be how we do the seats, is the foam core, and then also this teeny little plug, this little plug in here is built up there. I jokingly call that the hover plate. It's because when that's on the table, it gives it that height that looks like it's flying there, and you don't see it because it's such a small piece in there. But anyway, so foam core and your containers there and poker chip. So far, if you pick these up at your dollar store, they're a dollar and a quarter. If you pick these up at a regular grocery store, they're as much as $3 depending. I did a little bit of research, and I had found that the land speeders were 30 some odd dollars. I'll have something flashing on the screen with the number. I'll check that out on Amazon. So even if you buy these and throw away the candy, you're still spending less to build this than the one that's in the official Legion game. So not that I advocate just throwing away candy. I certainly know somebody you can have a mint. But so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take and pull this out. This is pre-cut right along that seam, just right along the tape. And we're just going to pull this out entirely. And then we're going to go ahead and cut this whole distance. It's wider than we need initially here because we can always trim back. That's some working material. So I'm going to cut the spoiler off. There you go. Nice and easy. Now, of course, that's going to end up being glued back here somehow to make that spoiler. And the next piece we're going to need is going to be the windshield. And the windshield, so we're just going to go ahead and decide the height that we want on that and cut another strip more or less just like this. This time we're going to move down to the material down here that doesn't have a sticker on it. Yes, you can remove the sticker. Yes, Goo Gone is great. This is just easier. And boom, there it is. There's your rough cut windshield. Um, so now we just kind of do a layout, kind of see what you like as far as placement. And if you wanted to actually go as far as using some blue tack and just temporarily hold that in there, that's a wonderful trick. So that's starting to kind of look like a speeder. So now, of course, what we're going to need to do is cut out the place for somebody to sit in it. So if you take a look here this time, the edge of the windshield, let's see if I can get a glare on that for you. Oh my goodness. The edge of that windshield is just about a 1/4 inch out from that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get out a ruler, draw a 1/4 inch out, and cut back to, I'm going to give myself also about a 1/4 inch back here, just so that we can keep this kind of strong. Maybe even a little bit more than a 1/4 inch back here. This, rather than a good pair of craft scissors, it is worth taking the time and using a sharp exacto knife, a new blade, to get this next piece done. There you go. So there's the cut out so that we can put in something to stand for the seats and whatnot. So left this piece here so that we can put in that, and then we can build on this, or we can put in a piece of foam core and build on that, whatever detail. See on this one, I used a couple pointy beads and this little tic-tac tray. So we'll get to that part as we round out the build, but next we're going to take a look at the seats. So that's how I did the seats in that one. It's foam core. That one's foam core. This one's foam core. Today we're going to do it with foam core. Show you how easy it is to get good looking little seats with foam core. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that your foam core piece, you want a platform, a basic piece to build on. So we're going to make sure that it's the right size, and we'll slide in at least as far as you want. Nice and snug. So clearly now we won't need this piece for this first base level, so trim that off next. Now, so we've got the one that will slide in so, and we got the piece we just trimmed that we're going to go ahead and slide it such that it just barely overhangs that. We just want a little bit of a lip there, just kind of like it does in your real car. Not that it'll be seen, but it'll be nice. And then so we're going to go ahead and it's like, we're going to do that the other way. This one's a little bigger. So glue that little step in there. For sake of speed right now, I'm going to go ahead and use super glue. But of course, Elmer's glue, PVA glue, hot glue, whatever you're using. Foam core is literally just the thing built for a lot of kind of hobbies. So go ahead and get your little platform piece built up. And there it is. So again, just like the seat in your car, we're just going to go ahead and kind of put that roughly in place. And then so we're going to take another piece and we're going to use it to make the backs and the little console in the center here, like those pieces. So this is now going to need to be trimmed to fit inside there. And then let's do a test fit. Okay. Now clearly that's way too tall for what we're going to need. So let's go ahead and take that piece that's going to be the spoiler. We're going to go ahead and just put it in place so we can kind of see. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut this in half and test that. Also, I'm going to bevel this edge so it sits at that nice reclined angle. Yeah, that looks much better. So it's at this point where we then go ahead and decide how we're going to do the seats, the part that's going to be visible here. So I like having a little bit of a console in the center here, so we're just going to kind of roughly draw a line there and make that thicker, and then just kind of round just a little bit. I mean, if you wanted to do something fancy, like, you know, put a little headrest. Sometimes seats have this little headrest. Anyway, so I'm going to leave this piece if I can, and we'll remove the foam from here and here, and then carve out that little detail. Alright, so now you can shape this by either carving it down more or getting like a nail file and just gently and slowly shaping those just a little bit. If you've seen my other videos, I'm going to mention this tip again. They do make hobby filing tools like this. They're kind of pricey. I suggest, like a lot of us, just go pick up some nail files at the dollar store or at your big box store. They work just fine. Oh, see how that split? That's no big deal. That's going to be glued solid in place anyway. But I'm pretty pleased with how round those seats are now. So at this point, I'm actually going to go ahead and coat these in some Mod Podge with just a little bit of black paint. Thank you, Black Magic Craft, to protect these, and then we'll move on to the next step. There it is. We'll just leave it there and let it dry. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and glue that in place, and this is where we decide a little bit about what we want to do back here. Do we want to use one of these? Do we want to use just this piece, which is kind of nice? Yeah, let's figure out how to use just that piece. So before we do that though, let's go ahead and glue. Alright, so we've got that piece glued in. The next thing that I'm going to suggest we do is go ahead and put the spoiler on. So with the spoiler, so you're going to want to just rough this up a little bit with sandpaper. It's a nice smooth plastic, both sides and the inside of this. And I'm thinking that I want that pretty high. So I'm going to go ahead and get that at about, well, less than 1/4 inch on that side. Get one side glued down nice and solid, and then get the other one to kind of match. And there. Starting to look more like a speeder. So let's start looking at some of the other details here. So this one, I've got some cardstock as some paneling. I think all of them have a little bit of cardstock as some paneling. These details here are part of a old phone jack for your earphones. This is one that I cut off of the wire and cut in half. Those are pretty interesting. This was some piece of packaging. I don't remember what it came off of. And then this was some fish or phone earbud wire as well. If you just don't have a pair that's dead hanging around, the Dollar Tree, it's $1.25, and you got a bunch for a few projects here. So I think I'm going to do something like that. It's a piece of cardstock, that food grade cardstock from cereal box or pizza box, as kind of a strap to hold that in place. So I think I'm going to do something like that here. So let's go ahead and figure out what we want to do for our new build here. So I do like the wires thing here. So let's go ahead and get some wire, and then I'll show you my ideas on how I do that. So not all the way here at the front, but back just a little bit. We're going to make 3 dots. And then, let's see, where did I put them back here? Put them at a bit of an angle where the windshield is going to go. So let's go ahead and do that again. Let's do one up here, kind of at an angle. Teeny little holes. So now the wire from some earbuds. We're just going to go ahead and put that in that hole. Oh, looks like I need to make that a little bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and put a wire in each of those holes. There we go. So those are tacked in place now. So I'm going to go ahead and pop a couple holes in here. I've kind of put one in as an example. So I want these wires to cross and be interesting. So we're going to go ahead and take this one and put it kind of in the center here. And then this is where you kind of mess with it. If you poke that hole deep enough, you just kind of keep putting it in there. If you want to have it like do some interesting shapes or something like a bend like that or something, go ahead and glue that in place. That's kind of interesting, so maybe we'll do that. But then have the next one cross it and go up. And maybe this one go up and under and all the way across all of them again and back down here. Just so that there's some interesting texture and overlapping there to imply that there's something mechanically going on there. It's an implied function. If you've watched my videos, you've heard me say that before. Alright, and so you see I've got some overlapping stuff there, some things will grab paint and wash. It's kind of nice here. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing on the other side, and it looks like the seat is dry enough. Let me get it in frame. Looks like the seat's dry enough to go ahead and glue in place, so I'm going to do that too. There you go. Some wires crossing, going into the machine, seats in place. Of course, the more time you put into any single detail, the better it turns out. Are those the absolute best seats? No, but again, once you finish adding in the windshield and all the pieces, it all comes together pretty nice. And of course, at this point, I'm using cast little pieces, and so we're going to go ahead and move ahead to this back piece for a couple minutes here. And we had kind of talked about maybe using this little tray. So I'm going to go ahead and snip that off, and we'll see what it kind of looks like in there. There it is. So that fits pretty snug in there. That's kind of nice. I wonder if we trim it all the way snuff and then we get another one if they'll fit two side by side. So let's go ahead and get that other piece. So yeah, that actually turned out pretty nice. I'm not going to worry too much about those gaps in there. That's just going to add a more definitive shadow line or something during painting here. As far as something inside of those to imply some sort of jets, yeah, we could do something with some pony beads or something like this. So we'll think about that here for a minute. So at this point, it's just going through the bits bin and figuring out, okay, so what bit of cardboard do I want to do? Do I want to use maybe Google Eyes for something on the front here? Do I want to do a grid like on a car or something here? So this is moving right along in a pretty good pace. So let's go ahead and keep it going. Okay, now I have a number of punches. I've talked about these in previous videos. I don't get to use this one very much. It's a little triangle. But of course, anything I use a punch for, you can cut out by hand. But this gives me a nice triangle, nice clean straight. One thing that I do like about this is this mimics the lines I decided to put in there a minute ago. So I think that at this point I'm going to go ahead and put the windshield in place. starting to have a very Star Warsy feel, kind of the boxy thing that we saw in Solo. So I think that I'm gonna go ahead and, even though you see all this interesting little detail here and here, that's actually on the inside. All we get is this little like nub here, this little indent. But that's all very interesting otherwise. So like that little dip. So I think I'm gonna use some cheapy rhinestones or something as like headlights or whatever here. But I'm gonna keep that deeper detail. So those will just be popped in right there. Okay, I added some pony beads back here. It's gonna add a little like jet engine piece sticking out. That'll paint up real nice. And yeah, they're googly eyes, alright. It's like, you're sus. You're sus. I don't trust him. Anyway, I also put a little bit of embroidery mesh, also sometimes called granulating. And then I did leave a hole all the way into that piece that's in the Tic Tac container itself. So at this point, this is coming together fairly nicely. We're going to go ahead and move forward with building what I was calling that hover plate. And again, I'll just show you on these guys. It's just a couple layers of foam core, or I think in one case I even used popsicle sticks. It's just that little spacer to give the illusion of flight. So we're going to go ahead and get a couple of those going here and be right back. So 3/4 inch, 1.5 inches. I like to round out the corners. You don't have to. And then it's all going to be painted black underneath there anyway, so more Mod Podge with black paint in there. Or maybe if you wanted, you could get a piece of like food grade cardstock and cover the whole thing. Ultimately, it's that underside piece there. You don't really see it. It just gives the illusion, just gives that lift. So that, then I'm going to go ahead and glue onto the poker chip. Now, I use an accelerator just to help keep things moving. Now you're going to notice there's just that little bit corner sticking out each side there. I'm just going to take the nail file and just follow that around. So it's just going to knock the corners off just barely. On the base. So that's the basic build done. Now, of course, there's other little details you could keep adding and just keep going with other details that you might have. Like one thing that I might do is I've got these small zip ties, right? That I like for a couple of reasons. So they give that little head. It's pretty small. And like we could add it there for just a little piece of tech looking piece. Right? Or even just right in the center of that. Just lay that right there, all the way down. So I might add a couple other little things like that. Oh, looks like I lost an eye. Gonna glue that back in too. So next step is discussions on painting. So important next step is that painting, and really the trick here is keeping this clear. So I rely on painter's tape and just cover the whole thing, and because the seat is already black, I don't necessarily need that to be painted a different color. I just might cover this whole area to seal that off, so that as I do the base coat and the paint job, this windshield remains clear. So that's something that we'll come back to tomorrow and do that next piece and show you kind of how the paint job looked. So there it is. Yeah, I jumped ahead quite a bit there because you don't need me to show you how to paint. There's a lot of people to show you that. I just want to hand over this idea of using a tic-tac container to make a land speeder. In large part inspired by the one in Solo. I think that, you know, even if you spend $2 a piece on the candy, that's still, you know, for under $10 you can make something like that. Have that on your table for any kind of sci-fi, futuristic, time travel game. Of course, Star Wars, Warhammer, all those. Anyway, so stay tuned for the glamour shots. Have a great day.